Maya Brooks walked into the training room with her sword hanging at her side. The ship was huge, one of the newest human vessels designed to explore deep space. She had been on board for 3 months now, and every day felt like a test. The training room was large and bright. Other crew members were already there, standing along the walls and talking quietly. They stopped when they saw her enter. Maya felt their eyes on her weapon. Some looked curious. Others looked worried. Commander Vexthor stood in the center of the room. He was tall, very tall. His species called themselves the Krathari. They had 4 arms and hard plates covering their bodies like armor. Their faces had mandibles that clicked when they talked. The Krathari were known across the galaxy as warriors. They had fought in wars for thousands of years. Vexthor saw Maya and made a clicking sound. His translator box turned his words into English. "The human brings a metal stick to my training session. How amusing. That weapon belongs in a museum, not on a military ship." Maya stopped walking. She looked at the alien commander and kept her face calm. Her grandfather had taught her to stay calm always. He said that anger made a warrior weak. She touched the handle of her sword gently. "This blade has protected my family for 300 years, Maya said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "I would like to show you what it can do." Several humans in the room shifted uncomfortably. They knew the Krathari were proud. Some species in the galaxy held grudges for insults. Starting a fight with the weapons instructor might cause problems. Vexthor spread his 4 arms wide. Each hand held a different weapon. One was a plasma blade that glowed purple. Another was an energy whip. The third held a long staff. The fourth held a small device that hummed with power. All of them looked dangerous and expensive. "You wish to fight me?" Vexthor's mandibles moved in what might have been a smile. "I have trained soldiers for 40 years. I know 17 different fighting styles from across the galaxy. What can your primitive steel do against modern weapons?" Jake Morrison stepped forward. He was the chief security officer, a good man who worried too much. "Commander, maybe we should just do regular training drills instead." Maya raised her hand to stop him. "I accept your challenge, Commander, but let us make it interesting. If I can touch you 3 times with my blade without cutting you, you must admit that human weapons deserve respect. If I fail, I will only use Krathari weapons for the rest of our mission." The room went very quiet. Everyone was looking at Maya now. Even the captain, Helen Price, had arrived and was watching from the doorway. Vexthor made a sound like laughter. "Agreed. This will teach everyone here why the Krathari are the best warriors in the galaxy." Captain Price stepped forward. "I want this to be safe. No serious injuries. Both of you understand?" Both fighters nodded. Maya walked to the center of the mat. She took 3 slow breaths. Her grandfather's voice was in her head. "Center yourself. Feel the ground under your feet. The sword is part of you, not separate from you." She held her sword in the middle position, blade pointing forward and slightly down. The handle felt warm in her hands. She had held it 10,000 times, maybe more. Every scratch on the handle had a memory. Vexthor activated his weapons. The plasma blade crackled with energy. The whip sparked. "Begin whenever you are ready, human. Show me what your metal stick can do." Maya smiled just a little. She had been waiting for this moment. Every day since she joined the crew, Vexthor had made comments about human weapons. He called them old. He called them weak. He acted like humans were children playing with toys. Today, that would change. She adjusted her stance slightly. Her feet were shoulder-width apart. Her knees were soft, not locked. Her center of gravity was low. Everything her grandfather taught her came flooding back. She could almost see him standing beside her, nodding his approval. "I am ready, Commander. Please attack when you wish." Vexthor moved fast. His 4 arms worked together like they were connected to the same brain. The plasma blade came at her right side. The energy whip snapped toward her legs. Both attacks came at the same time. Most fighters would have tried to block both. Maya did not do that. Instead, she stepped forward and left. She moved inside the arc of his plasma blade. Getting close to him, her sword moved in a small circle, pushing the energy whip away from her body. The blade passed very close to his lead arm but did not touch. "1," Maya said softly. Vexthor made a surprised sound. His mandibles clicked rapidly. He had not expected her to move toward danger instead of away from it. Most students backed up when attacked. Humans seemed to have different instincts. The Krathari commander recovered quickly. He was experienced. He brought his staff around in a wide swing while keeping the plasma blade up for defense. His fourth weapon, the neural disruptor, hummed as it targeted her nervous system. Maya had already moved again. She dropped low, holding her sword horizontally above her head. The staff hit her blade and slid past her shoulder. The angle was wrong for Vexthor. His height, usually an advantage, now worked against him. Maya spun under his guard. Her blade touched the outside of his lower right arm with a gentle tap. Just the flat of the steel against his armor. "Two," she said, stepping back quickly. The people watching began to whisper. Jake Morrison's worried face had changed. Now he looked amazed. Captain Price was still silent, but she was almost smiling. Vexthor straightened up. All four of his eyes stared at Maya with new interest. "You are faster than you look. But speed is not everything. You have been lucky so far." Luck always runs out. He changed how he stood. This time all four weapons came together in a defensive position. He would not attack carelessly again. He would wait for her to come to him, then counter her attack with his longer reach and more weapons. Maya saw the change immediately. She had studied Krathari fighting methods during her journey to the ship. Their martial tradition emphasized using overwhelming force and adapting to the situation. Vexthor was doing exactly what his training taught him to do, which meant he was also becoming predictable. She began to circle around him. Her sword was held low, the tip barely raised off the ground. She moved smoothly like water flowing. Each step was careful and deliberate. The katana felt weightless now. Her body remembered thousands of hours of practice. Vexthor turned to track her movement. His weapons shifted slightly to maintain his defensive coverage. "You are hesitating. You know you cannot get past my guard. Surrender now and save yourself the embarrassment." Maya did not answer with words. Instead, she stamped her front foot hard. The sound echoed through the training room. Vexthor's weapons twitched toward the noise. It was instinct, automatic. In that tiny fraction of a second, Maya moved, but not forward toward him. She went backward and to the side, pulling his attention away. Then she reversed direction instantly. 3 fast steps brought her close. Her sword moved in a complex pattern through the air. The blade came from an angle Vexthor had not expected. It came upward and from his blind spot, the space between his upper and lower arms where his defensive formation created a small gap. The edge stopped just before touching the softer tissue beneath his mandibles. He could feel the coldness of the steel against his skin. 3, Maya whispered. Then she stepped back and bowed. She held her sword vertically in front of her face in the traditional salute. The training room exploded with noise. The human crew members clapped and cheered. Even some aliens watching seemed impressed. Vexthor stood completely still. His weapons were still active. His body was tense. Then slowly he turned off each weapon and put them away on his equipment belt. His mandibles moved in a pattern Maya had never seen before. Captain Price walked onto the mat. "Both of you fought well. Commander Vexthor, I believe Lieutenant Brooks has earned what she asked for." Vexthor looked at Maya with all 4 of his eyes. The intensity of his stare made several crew members take a step back. His chest plates moved in and out as he breathed deeply. Maya recognized this from the database as a sign of strong emotion. For a moment, Maya wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. The Krathari were proud warriors. She had just embarrassed their weapons master in front of many witnesses. Some alien species would consider this a serious insult. They might demand revenge. Then Vexthor did something nobody expected. He lowered himself down onto one knee. This brought his head down to Maya's eye level. His forearms crossed over his chest in a gesture Maya had never seen in any database. "I acknowledge that I was wrong." His translator spoke with unusual weight to the words. "Your blade is not primitive. Your technique is not inferior. I let my pride and my prejudice blind me. Every warrior learns this truth eventually. It is not the weapon that matters most. It is the warrior who uses the weapon." The training hall became completely silent. Several aliens looked at each other with surprise. Apparently, they had never seen a Krathari weapons master kneel before anyone, especially not a human who was half his size. Maya put her katana back in its sheath with one smooth motion. She offered her hand to Vexthor. "Commander, you are skilled. Your attacks were coordinated and powerful. I simply had the advantage of fighting with a weapon I have trained with since I was a child. In your hands, your weapons are surely devastating." Vexthor looked at her hand for a moment. Then he reached out with his upper right arm and took her hand gently. His grip was careful, making sure not to crush her smaller human bones. "You are generous in victory, Lieutenant Brooks. That is also the mark of a true warrior." He stood up to his full height again, towering over her. His mandibles clicked in a new pattern. Maya was surprised to hear what sounded like approval in his translated voice. "I have a proposition for you, Lieutenant. Would you teach me the ways of your blade? In exchange, I will teach you how to use Krathari weapons properly. We will learn from each other." Maya felt herself smile. This was better than she had hoped for. "I would be honored, Commander." Captain Price nodded with approval. "Excellent. Lieutenant Morrison, change the training schedules. I want all department heads to attend at least one session. If we are going to represent humanity out here, we should understand and respect each other's fighting traditions." Jake Morrison gave a salute. "Yes, Captain. I will arrange it." As the crowd started to leave, several crew members came up to Maya to congratulate her. Dr. Lisa Grant, the ship's chief medical officer, patted her on the shoulder. "That was incredible. I have never seen anyone move like that." "It takes years of practice," Maya replied. She flexed her hand that held the sword. The adrenaline was fading now, replaced by tiredness. "My grandfather could have done it better. He was the real master." "Your grandfather should be very proud," Vexthor said, coming closer. His 4 eyes studied Maya's katana with new interest. "May I look at the weapon more closely?" Maya drew the blade and held it out horizontally across both palms. This was the traditional way to show a sword to another warrior. Vexthor leaned down. His multiple eyes examined the steel from different angles. "The folding pattern in the metal," he observed. "This is not simply forged. It is layered, thousands of times. The edge is sharp enough to cut at the molecular level. This is not primitive technology. This is art. The technique is called pattern welding," Maya explained. "My ancestors discovered that by folding the steel repeatedly, they could remove impurities. This created a blade that was both flexible and incredibly hard. Modern science can explain why it works. But they perfected it through trial and error over many centuries." Vexthor's mandibles moved thoughtfully. "The Krathari have similar traditions with our ceremonial blades. But we abandoned them when energy weapons became widespread. Perhaps we were too hasty in doing so. There is something to be said for a weapon that requires no power cells, no maintenance beyond sharpening and oiling." "It is reliable," Maya agreed. "On a starship, that matters. Energy weapons can malfunction. But steel is steel. It does not care if there is an electromagnetic pulse or a power failure." Captain Price had stayed near the doorway listening to their conversation. Now she spoke up. "Lieutenant Brooks, I want you to prepare a presentation on traditional human weapons for the next department head meeting. Commander Vexthor, I want you to do the same for Krathari weapons. I think we have all learned something valuable today about the danger of dismissing different approaches to the same problem." Both warriors nodded in agreement. As the captain left, Vexthor turned to Maya once more. "You moved inside my guard twice. That is a human tactic I do not fully understand. It seems wrong to move toward danger." Maya smiled. "It is based on timing and reading your opponent. The moment you commit to an attack, there is a brief window where you are vulnerable. By moving forward into that window, I make it harder for you to adjust. Your weapons are designed for reach, but at close range that reach becomes a disadvantage." "Fascinating. And the sound you made with your foot. That was a deliberate distraction?" "Exactly. In Japanese swordsmanship, we call techniques like that kiai. It can be a shout, a stomp, any sound that breaks your opponent's focus for just an instant. That instant is all you need." Vexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly. This was a sign of excitement. "We must train together immediately." "I have much to learn," Maya laughed. "Let me catch my breath first, Commander. Give me an hour and I will meet you back here." She went back to her quarters and sat down on her bunk. Her hands were shaking slightly now. The full weight of what had happened was settling on her. She had challenged an alien weapons master and won. Not through luck, but through skill and training. She looked at her katana still in her hand. The blade gleamed in the light of her quarters. Her grandfather had held this same sword. His father before him had held it. And his father before that. The line stretched back through generations. Each person who held this blade had added something to it. Not physically, but in spirit. They had added their experiences, their understanding, their dedication. The sword was more than metal. It was a connection to everyone in her family who had walked the path of the warrior. Her grandfather's voice came back to her. He had said many times that the way of the sword was not about defeating enemies. It was about understanding yourself. Today she had understood something important. Standing firm in your traditions did not mean rejecting new ideas. It meant having the confidence to share what you knew with others. Maya cleaned her blade carefully, using the oil and cloth she kept for this purpose. The ritual was soothing. It gave her time to think and to calm down. There was a chime at her door. "Come in," she called. Captain Price entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this. It has been quite a day for you." Maya accepted the cup gratefully. "Thank you, Captain. I hope I did not create any problems with Commander Vexthor." On the contrary, Price sat down in the small chair opposite Maya's bunk. "I just received a message from the Krathari High Command. Apparently, Vexthor sent them a detailed report of your match. They are impressed. They have formally requested that we include human martial arts in the Galactic Council's military training database." Maya nearly dropped her coffee. "What? They want to add our techniques to their official records?" "They do. The Krathari respect strength and skill above all else. You demonstrated both. More importantly, you showed them that Earth's warriors are not just copying alien combat methods. We have our own traditions that are worth preserving and sharing." Price sipped her coffee. "You have done more for human and alien relations in one sparring match than our diplomats have managed in months of negotiations." "I was just defending my family's honor, Captain. I did not mean to start anything big. Sometimes the best diplomacy happens when people stop trying to be diplomatic and just be themselves." Price smiled. "Take the win, Lieutenant. You have earned it." After the captain left, Maya sat alone with her sword. She thought about her grandfather. He had taught her that the way of the sword was about understanding oneself. Today she had understood something important. That standing firm in your traditions did not mean rejecting new ideas. It meant having confidence to share what you knew. Word about the sparring match spread through the ship faster than anything Maya had ever seen. By the evening shift change, every crew member had heard some version of the story. Many versions were exaggerated. In one story, Maya had supposedly disarmed all 4 of Vexthor's weapons at the same time. In another, she had performed an impossible flip in midair. Maya found herself stopped in corridors by crew members she barely knew. Everyone wanted to hear the real story or ask questions about her sword. The attention was nice but also overwhelming. She had never wanted to be famous. She simply wanted to honor her family's tradition and prove that human martial arts deserved recognition alongside alien combat systems. That evening, she was in her quarters polishing her katana when her door chimed. "Come in," she called. Captain Price entered. She was not alone. Behind her was Commander Vexthor, looking somewhat uncomfortable in the small human-sized corridor. "Lieutenant Brooks," Price said, "Commander Vexthor has something he wants to discuss with you." Vexthor's mandibles clicked softly. "Lieutenant, I have been thinking about our match all day. I have also been reviewing recordings of it. I wish to understand something. When you moved inside my guard the second time, you dropped very low to the ground. This put you in a vulnerable position. If I had been faster, I could have struck you from above. Why did you take that risk?" Maya set down her polishing cloth. "This was an interesting question." "Because I knew you would not be faster, Commander." "I had already seen how you moved. Your upper arms move independently from your lower arms, but there is a slight delay when you try to coordinate all 4 at once. That delay is perhaps 1/10 of a second, but 1/10 of a second is enough." Vexthor's 4 eyes widened slightly. "You observed this during our fight?" "During and before. I have been watching you train other crew members for 3 months. I studied how you move, how you think, how you react. I knew that when I dropped low, your instinct would be to continue the staff swing rather than abort it and strike downward. Changing direction mid-attack is difficult even for Krathari." Vexthor was silent for a long moment. Then his mandibles clicked in what Maya now recognized as respect. "You are not just skilled with your weapon. You are a student of combat itself. You understand that winning begins long before the first strike. My grandfather taught me that. He said the best victory is the one where you never have to fight, because you already know how it will end." Captain Price smiled. "Which brings us to why we are here. Commander Vexthor has a proposal. He wants to create a joint training program, not just him teaching you and you teaching him, but a comprehensive program where humans and Krathari learn from each other systematically." Vexthor nodded. "I have contacted my superiors. They are very interested in this idea. They believe that the Krithari military could benefit from studying human martial arts. In particular, your emphasis on using minimal force to achieve maximum effect. We Krithari tend to rely on overwhelming power. But power is not always available. Technique is always available. Maya felt excitement rising in her chest. A joint training program. That would be incredible, but it would take a lot of work to develop. I am willing to put in the work, Vexthor said. Are you? Absolutely. Captain Price clasped her hands together. Excellent. I will allocate resources and space for this project. Lieutenant Brooks, you will work with Commander Vexthor to develop a curriculum. I want a preliminary proposal in 2 weeks. After they left, Maya sat on her bunk and stared at the ceiling. A joint training program. Her grandfather would have loved this idea. He had always believed that martial arts were meant to be shared, not hoarded. He said that teaching someone else your techniques made you better, not weaker, because it forced you to understand them more deeply. The next morning, Maya arrived at the training hall early. She found Vexthor already there, along with a surprising number of other people. At least 30 crew members had gathered. Humans, yes, but also aliens. Salathi engineers with their multiple tentacles. Venturi diplomats with their crystalline skin. Even a couple of Meridian technicians who usually avoided social situations. Jake Morrison was trying to organize everyone. Okay, everyone, find a spot. We have got a lot of people here today. Vexthor stood at the center of the mat with his forearms crossed. When he saw Maya, his mandibles clicked in greeting. Lieutenant Brooks, I have prepared demonstrations of Krithari combat forms. But first, I believe you should show everyone what you showed me yesterday. Maya felt her face get warm. Commander, I do not think that is necessary. Please, Vexthor interrupted. They should understand why I have changed my opinion about human weapons. Words are not enough. They must see with their own eyes. Jake handed Maya her katana. Come on, Brooks. Show them what you can do. Maya stepped onto the mat with her sword still in its sheath. She had not planned to perform alone, but she could adapt. All right. What you are about to see is called a kata. It is a prearranged sequence of movements that simulates combat against multiple opponents. Every motion has a purpose. Every position has meaning. She drew her blade smoothly and began. The kata her grandfather had taught her was called Nami Gaishi, which meant returning waves. It involved flowing from one stance to another. Each cut or thrust defended against an imaginary attacker from a different direction. The movements were centuries old. They had been refined by countless practitioners until every unnecessary motion had been removed. What remained was pure efficiency. As she moved through the sequence, the training hall fell silent. Even Vexthor stood motionless, his 4 eyes following every movement. The blade caught the overhead lights, reflecting brief flashes as it carved through the air. Maya felt herself entering the state her grandfather called Mushin, which meant no mind. It was a state where thought and action became one thing. When she finished, she held the final position for 3 heartbeats. Then she smoothly returned the sword to its sheath. The gathered crew erupted in applause. Vexthor stepped forward. What Lieutenant Brooks has demonstrated is the product of disciplined training over many years. Notice that she wasted no energy on unnecessary movements. Every action served a tactical purpose. This is the mark of a true martial art, not mere violence. He activated one of his own weapons. The plasma blade crackled to life with purple energy. Now I will show you the Krithari form called Four-Wind Strike. It uses all 4 arms in coordinated assault. Watch carefully. What followed was a demonstration that was both frightening and beautiful. Vexthor's 4 arms moved independently yet harmoniously. Each weapon covered a different angle of attack and defense. The precision was remarkable. Clearly, this was the result of decades of training similar to what Maya had undergone. When both demonstrations were complete, Vexthor gestured for Maya to join him at the center of the mat. Now, Lieutenant Brooks and I will show you something new. We will combine our techniques, human and Krithari working together. Maya looked at him with surprise. They had not discussed this. But she saw the challenge in his eyes and understood. He wanted to see if they could improvise, if their different styles could mesh without extensive planning. She nodded and took her position. Vexthor activated 2 of his weapons, the plasma blade and the staff. Maya drew her katana and held it in a middle guard. They began to circle each other slowly. Then Vexthor attacked, his plasma blade sweeping in from the right. Maya parried with her katana, the steel ringing against the energy field. She followed up with a quick thrust that Vexthor blocked with his staff. They exchanged several more techniques, each one flowing into the next. What started as a demonstration became something more. They were actually fighting, but in a controlled way. Testing each other, learning each other's rhythms and patterns. Maya saw an opening and took it. She feinted high, then went low, her blade passing under Vexthor's guard. But instead of striking him, she stopped the blade and transitioned into a defensive position. Vexthor responded by attacking from a different angle, and Maya flowed around his strike. They continued like this for several minutes, neither one dominating, both adapting to the other's style. The watching crew was absolutely silent, mesmerized by the display. Finally, they both stepped back and bowed to each other. The room exploded with cheering and applause. Dr. Grant pushed through the crowd. "That was amazing. You two barely know each other, but you moved like you had been training together for years." Vexthor's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Lieutenant Brooks is an exceptional partner. She reads movements instinctively. This is a rare gift." Maya felt herself blushing again. Commander Vexthor made it easy. His techniques are clear and direct. There is no wasted motion, which makes him predictable in a good way. Captain Price approached with a satisfied expression. "This is exactly what I wanted to see. You two are going to create something special here, something that will benefit both our species for generations." The next 3 weeks were the busiest of Maya's life. Every morning, she met with Vexthor to plan the joint training program. Every afternoon, they practiced together, learning each other's techniques and figuring out how to teach them to others. Every evening, Maya wrote reports and created training documents. The work was exhausting but also exciting. She was helping to build something that had never existed before, a bridge between human and alien martial traditions, a way for two very different species to learn from each other. The biggest challenge was finding common ground. Human and Krithari bodies were completely different. Humans had 2 arms. Krithari had 4. Humans were flexible and quick. Krithari were strong and durable. What worked for one species did not always work for the other, but they also discovered surprising similarities. Both traditions emphasized discipline. Both required years of dedicated practice. Both taught that the mind was as important as the body. Both understood that true martial arts were not about violence but about self-improvement. "The principle is the same," Maya explained one day as they worked through a difficult technique. "You use your opponent's force against them. In judo we call it kuzushi, which means breaking balance. You do not fight strength with strength. You redirect it." Vexthor nodded, his 4 eyes focused intently. "The Krithari have a similar concept. We call it Tharkesh, which translates roughly to flowing water. The idea is that water does not fight the rock. It goes around it. Over time, the water shapes the rock." "Exactly," Maya said with excitement. "These are universal principles. They work regardless of how many arms you have or how strong you are. They work because they are based on physics and leverage, not on physical power." They began to incorporate these universal principles into their training program. Instead of teaching specific techniques that only worked for specific body types, they taught concepts that could be adapted. Balance, timing, distance, leverage. These things applied to everyone. Word of their work spread beyond the ship. The Galactic Council became interested. They sent observers to watch training sessions. They asked for reports and recordings. They wanted to know if this kind of cross-species training could work on a larger scale. One day, Captain Price called Maya to her office. When Maya arrived, she found not just the captain, but also several holographic projections of important-looking aliens. One was a Krithari general with elaborate markings on his chest plates. Another was a Xylothi council member whose tentacles moved in complex patterns. A third was a human admiral Maya recognized from news broadcasts. "Lieutenant Brooks," Captain Price said formally, "these distinguished guests have a proposal for you." The Krithari general spoke first. His translator gave his words a deep, resonant quality. "Lieutenant Brooks, your work with Commander Vexthor has impressed the Krithari High Command. We believe this joint training program has significant potential. We wish to expand it. We are prepared to assign additional Krithari instructors to your ship and to send human instructors to our training facilities on Krathar Prime." The human admiral leaned forward. "The Earth Defense Force agrees. We want to make this an official program. Lieutenant Brooks, we are offering you a promotion to full lieutenant commander and assigning you as the director of the new cross-species martial arts initiative." Maya felt dizzy. This was happening so fast. Just a month ago, she had simply wanted to prove her sword deserved respect. Now they were offering her a promotion and putting her in charge of an entire initiative. "I am honored," she said carefully, "but I am not sure I am qualified to direct such a large program. I am just a martial artist. I do not have experience with administration or politics." The Xylothi Council members' tentacles formed a shape that the translator interpreted as a smile. "That is precisely why you are qualified, Lieutenant. You are not a politician. You are a practitioner. You understand the art itself, not just the theory, and you have already proven you can work effectively with other species. These are the qualities we need," Captain Price spoke up. "Maya, you do not have to decide right now. Take some time to think about it. But I want you to know that I support this completely. You have done something remarkable here." After the meeting ended and the holograms disappeared, Maya sat alone in the captain's office. Her hands were shaking slightly. A promotion. A directorship. Recognition from both human and alien governments. It was more than she had ever imagined. But was it what she wanted? Her grandfather had taught her that the way of the sword was a personal journey. It was about perfecting yourself, not about fame or recognition. Would taking this position pull her away from that path? She thought about what her grandfather would say. She could almost hear his voice. He would tell her that the path of the warrior was not just about personal perfection. It was also about service, about using your skills to help others, about being a bridge between different people and cultures. Maya took a deep breath and stood up. She knew what she had to do. The next day, she accepted the promotion. The official announcement came a week later. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from across the galaxy. Some were congratulatory, some were curious, some were skeptical. Many people doubted that such different species could really learn from each other in meaningful ways. Maya and Vexthor decided to prove the skeptics wrong in the most direct way possible. They would create a demonstration. Not just a simple sparring match, but a full kata that combined human and Krathari techniques into something new, something that had never existed before. They worked on it for 3 weeks. Every day they practiced together, refining the movements, adjusting the timing, making sure every technique flowed into the next. It was like creating a dance, except this dance was about combat. The demonstration was scheduled to take place during a formal ceremony. The ship's entire crew would attend. Several alien dignitaries would watch via holographic link. Even representatives from the Galactic Council would be present. The night before the demonstration, Maya could not sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, going through the kata in her mind. She had practiced it 100 times. She knew every movement. But what if something went wrong? What if she made a mistake in front of everyone? Her grandfather's voice came to her again. He had told her once that nervousness before a test was natural. It meant you cared about doing well. The key was to transform that nervous energy into focus. Maya got up and took her katana from its stand. She went through the basic form slowly, letting her body remember the movements. The familiar ritual calmed her mind. By the time she finished, she felt centered again, ready. The next morning, the training hall was packed. Every crew member who could attend was there. The walls were lined with holographic projectors, showing alien observers from across the galaxy. Maya had never performed in front of so many people. She stood on one side of the mat in her training uniform, her katana at her side. Vexthor stood on the opposite side, his forearms holding his weapons in a ceremonial position. Between them, Captain Price stood to make the formal introduction. "Today," Price said, her voice carrying through the hall, "you will witness something unprecedented. Lieutenant Commander Maya Brooks and Commander Vexthor have created a new kata that combines human and Krathari martial traditions. This demonstration represents not just a fusion of techniques, but a fusion of philosophies. It is a symbol of what different species can achieve when they choose to learn from each other, rather than compete." Price stepped off the mat. Maya and Vexthor bowed to each other, then turned to face the audience and bowed to them as well. Then they began. Maya began the sequence alone. Her katana moved through the opening forms, each cut precise and controlled. The blade sang softly as it cut through the air. She moved with the fluid grace that came from years of training, her feet barely making a sound on the mat. Then Vexthor entered from the opposite side. His 4 weapons were active, each one glowing with energy. He moved toward her with the powerful stride of a Krathari warrior. For a moment it seemed they would collide, that this would become a fight. But instead they flowed around each other. Maya's blade passed within centimeters of Vexthor's body, never touching. His plasma blade swept past her shoulder, controlled perfectly. They were dancing, but this dance told a story of combat, of defense and attack, of two warriors finding harmony in the midst of conflict. Where Maya's sword created openings, Vexthor's weapons filled the gaps. Where his weapons formed a barrier, her blade found the paths through. They demonstrated offense and defense together. They showed aggression and patience. They displayed strength and precision working as one unit. The audience watched in absolute silence. This was more than just a martial arts demonstration. It was a symbol of what the Galactic Council claimed to represent. Different species, different cultures finding common ground through mutual respect and understanding. Maya and Vexthor moved through the kata with perfect synchronization. Every movement had been practiced hundreds of times, but it did not feel mechanical or rehearsed. It felt alive. Each technique flowed naturally into the next, as if they had been designed together from the beginning, rather than combined from two separate traditions. At one point, Maya dropped low and spun beneath Vexthor's guard while his staff swept over her head. At another, Vexthor's forearms formed a defensive cage around her while she thrust her blade outward through the gaps. They were showing that their different fighting styles were not incompatible. They were complementary. The final sequence brought them back to back, their weapons held in a joint salute. They stood perfectly still for 3 heartbeats. Then they separated and bowed to each other and then to the audience. For a moment there was only silence. Then the room exploded with sound. The crew members cheered and clapped. The holographic observers made their species-equivalent sounds of approval. The noise continued for a full minute without stopping. Maya felt tears in her eyes. She had done it. They had done it. Together they had created something beautiful and meaningful. Something that proved human and alien warriors could learn from each other and become stronger together. Later that evening, there was a formal celebration in the officers' mess. Captain Price raised a glass to make a toast to Lieutenant Commander Maya Brooks and Commander Vexthor, who taught us all that our differences make us stronger, not weaker. Everyone in the room raised their glasses and repeated the toast. Vexthor's translator rendered his response with unusual emotion. I came to this ship believing I had nothing to learn from humans. I was completely wrong. Lieutenant Commander Brooks taught me humility without humiliation. She showed me strength without arrogance. These are lessons I will carry for the rest of my life. Maya raised her own glass. Her voice was thick with emotion. And Commander Vexthor taught me that tradition and innovation are not enemies. They are partners. My grandfather always said that the way of the sword is the way of continuous learning. Now I finally understand what he meant. Jake Morrison leaned back in his chair with a big grin. You know what the best part is? The whole galaxy is going to be talking about this. Human martial arts are going to become part of standard military training programs across multiple worlds. Brooks, you are going to be famous. Maya shook her head. I do not care about being famous. I just wanted to show that my family's tradition has value, that it deserves respect. You showed much more than that, Vexthor said. You showed that respect itself is a weapon more powerful than any blade or energy rifle. You defeated me without drawing blood, not because you held back, but because you understood that the true victory was changing my mind, not harming my body. Dr. Grant, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. There is a principle at work here. Violence creates wounds that eventually heal, but respect creates bonds that last forever. What you two have built together is going to outlast all of us. As the celebration continued around her, Maya excused herself. She went to one of the observation decks where she could be alone for a few minutes. The ship was currently traveling between star systems. The view was spectacular. Countless stars scattered across the infinite darkness. Some were familiar from Earth's sky. Others were completely alien. She drew her katana and held it up to the starlight. The blade seemed to glow with its own inner light. The folded steel patterns created subtle waves across the surface. Her grandfather had held this same sword. His father before him had held it. The line stretched back through many generations. They had all added their own experiences to this weapon. Their own understanding, their own spirit. Now Maya had added hers. She had carried her family's tradition to the stars and proven its worth. Not through violence, but through skill, determination, and respect. The blade had not changed physically, but its meaning had expanded. It was no longer just a piece of family history. It was a bridge between cultures. It was a symbol of humanity's place in the larger galactic community. "Your grandfather would be very proud," a voice said behind her. She turned to find Captain Price standing in the doorway. "I have been reading his journals. They are in the ship's cultural database. Did you know he wrote about you?" Maya shook her head, surprised. "I knew he kept journals, but I never read them. They felt too personal." Price handed her a data pad. "This entry is from 5 years before he died. He wrote about teaching you the basics of sword fighting." "You were 8 years old." Maya read her grandfather's words. They had been carefully digitized to preserve them. His handwriting was clear and precise. "Today I taught Maya the first kata." She struggled with the footwork, as all beginners do, but she never complained. She fell down, got up, and tried again. "I see in her something I have rarely seen in students. Not just determination, but understanding. She does not just want to swing a sword. She wants to know why the sword is swung this way and not that way. She wants to understand the principles beneath the movements. If she continues this path, she will surpass me. And if she does, I will die happy, knowing that what I learned will not die with me." Maya's eyes blurred with tears. She looked up at Captain Price. He knew I would carry this forward." "He believed in you," Price said simply, "and you have proven him right. The Galactic Council is formally recognizing human martial arts as a protected cultural tradition. Schools will be established on colony worlds. Instructors will be trained. All because you refused to let someone mock your blade without proving its worth." Maya put away her katana and wiped her eyes. It was never really about the blade, though. It was about what the blade represents. Discipline, tradition, respect, continuous improvement. Those are human values. But I think they are also universal values. Every species in the galaxy understands them, even if they express them differently. "That is very wise," Price agreed. "And it is exactly the kind of wisdom we need out here. The galaxy is full of species who think their way is the only way. You and Vexthor proved them wrong. You showed that we are all stronger when we learn from each other." They stood together on the observation deck, watching the stars drift past. Somewhere out there, Maya knew, were worlds where humans and aliens would train together. They would learn each other's martial traditions. They would build understanding one technique at a time. Her grandfather's sword had traveled from Earth to the stars. It had faced down prejudice and pride. It had drawn no blood, but had carved a permanent lesson into the minds of everyone who witnessed its use. The lesson was simple but profound. True strength comes not from the weapon you carry, but from the spirit with which you wield it. Maya smiled and touched the sword's handle gently. "Thank you, grandfather. I hope I have made you proud." The stars offered no answer, but somehow deep in her heart she knew he was smiling. The path of the warrior was not just about personal perfection. It was about service. It was about being a bridge between people. It was about sharing what you knew so that others could grow. Maya had walked that path faithfully. She had honored her family's tradition while also opening it to others. She had proven that old ways and new ways could exist together, that human and alien could learn from each other. That respect was more powerful than any weapon. Her journey was far from over. There would be more challenges ahead, more skeptics to convince, more bridges to build. But she was ready. She had her grandfather's sword, her own skills, and most importantly, she had learned the greatest lesson of all. The true warrior fights not to defeat others, but to unite them. The sharpest blade is the one that never needs to draw blood because it has already cut through prejudice, pride, and fear. And the greatest victory is not won on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of those who witness courage combined with compassion. Maya looked out at the stars one last time, then turned and walked back into the ship. There was work to do, students to teach, programs to build, a future to create where humans and aliens stood together, learning F.